I'm rolling. So.
Okay. So my name is Kate Waldron, and I teach second grade at Aspire University Charter School in Modesto, California. And today I taught a lesson on part whole and how to use that as a strategy for one-step subtraction problems.
Good. How does this lesson connect to and build on students' prior skills and knowledge? What was taught before the lesson and what will come after it?
So the major work of second grade is addition and subtraction, and so we've spent a lot of time in the previous months just building on different strategies for both addition and subtraction. We've been doing some part whole work with addition word problems, and so naturally in the progression we would now be working on subtraction word problems. So that's kind of building on what we've already been doing with part whole addition. Now, continuing after this lesson, we would then go into mixed problems where they might have a subtraction and an addition problem within the word problem. Two-step, go into a two-step kind of situation where they're going to have to still use the part whole box as a strategy, but they're going to have to look at the number clues and what's happening in the problem to kind of challenge them and go further with this.
We're moving to standards. Talk about the standards or cluster targeted in this lesson. What did you do to make the lesson reflect the full intent of the standard?
Okay, no, I think I'm good. Yeah, I'm
okay.
Good. So with the major work of second grade being addition and subtraction, students need to be able to add and subtract within 100. And so this, and with the standard, it talks about one-step and two-step problems. So this lesson only addressed subtraction within 100 for a one-step problem, but you can always build on this lesson and do two-step problems later on once the students are comfortable with one step, and that would better address the whole standard. The standard's kind of, it's kind of broad. There's multiple aspects to it, so I just kind of chose one aspect for this lesson today.
Okay. Which of the core action indicators do you think this lesson best exemplified?
Okay, that I want to look at. Can you pause it really quick?
Which of the core action indicators do you think this lesson best exemplifies, and how did you plan for this?
So I think that the lesson best exemplifies core action 2. In the way that I planned the lesson, I really focused on kind of starting out more simple and then kind of guiding them through to more difficult problems. So kind of what I mean by that is we started the lesson off with some basic things, asking, how we can, okay, hang on, I'm getting stuck on my words. Can I retake?
Yeah, from the top. So which of the core action indicators do you think this best exemplifies?
Okay, so I think this lesson best exemplifies core action 2, and kind of more of a gradual release with the kids. We started out with a read aloud where I asked them questions. Throughout the read aloud, it had to do, with money and spending money, using the part whole boxes. But the students had to explain their thinking, justify their thinking on how, why they thought that and how they figured that out. After that, they were able to work with a partner, which again kind of gradually released them from a whole group setting to partner setting. They were able to share out their answers. Some were able to share with the whole class up at the front, and then they were able to try it on their own to kind of see where they. I kind of wanted to kind of gauge and see where they were at. So we ended with an assessment at the end. So it was kind of like a whole group, partner, and then on their own.
We're interested in how the shifts required by the CCSS are being incorporated into your classroom. First question, discuss how the lessons illustrates the shifts required by the CCSS. So again, discuss how this lesson illustrates the shifts required by the CCSS.
Okay, so with the shifts of Common Core, there's a focus on less standards, more in depth, more conceptual instead of just procedural for math. And I think this lesson helped with that shift because it provided students another strategy to solve the problem. They were given, part, whole box, which is just one of many strategies they can use. But I showed them how they can use that with word problems. And, instead of just teaching them the algorithm way that, that I was taught and just here's the procedure and go, we went more in depth. Why does this work? How does this work? And I think that goes along with the Common Core shift of getting kids to really get out of their comfort zone, think about why things work, and then be able to explain and justify their thinking.
How did you teach the content of this lesson prior to the CCSS? What is the same and what is different?
Actually, prior to this lesson, prior to switching over to Common Core, I actually didn't teach part, whole. I'll be completely honest. I taught my kids the algorithm because that's how I was taught math and that's how I understood math. And, and I saw kids struggle because they weren't understanding the concept and why it was working. And so I really didn't teach things like part, whole. So now that we're shifting over and we're learning and going in deeper into different strategies, using things like the part, whole method just gives them another strategy to use. Sometimes it fits for their brain better than other students, but it's there as an option for them to use for their maths, adding and subtracting.
How did the students handle this lesson? Did they understand the mathematics of the lesson, and how do you know?
So I think overall, the students had a pretty good grasp of the lesson. I did notice, though, during their exit ticket assessment as I was walking around, a couple of the kids were mixing up where to put the part and put the whole. They ended up with the correct answer. They understood that it was subtraction, but they were getting a little bit mixed up on where to put that. So that may have been a little bit of a misconception for a few kids that I'm going to have to later address. But overall, I think it went well. They were able to justify their thinking, and once the kids found the number sentence using the part, whole box, found the number sentence, it was great because they used different strategies to then solve the equation. Base 10 blocks, number strings, counting on. They were using different strategies, so that was kind of cool to see, kind of tying them all together to solve one problem. So overall, I think it went pretty well.
Explain how you differentiated in the lesson. Did all students have the opportunity to work on grade level content? If all students did not have this opportunity, explain why.
So this was the first lesson that we did with part, whole subtraction. So instead of starting off the bat with differentiating, I gave everybody the same type of numbers, type of questions, just to kind of get a baseline of where they were at and how they would do with that. I did, however, provide an early finisher activity where students could create their own word problem and then have their partners solve it. Some kids got to that, some kids didn't. That was there as an opportunity for them if they got done early. But overall, I think with introductory lessons, just getting a baseline of where they're at, then now I can kind of see, okay, who's understanding, who's ready to move on to more challenging things, and who needs a little bit more of a review on what we did today.
Okay, so which behaviors from Core Action 3 did the students best exemplify in this lesson?
Wait, can I take a look really quick?
Okay.
So this lesson exemplified Core Action 3 in a couple different ways. The students were able to justify and explain their thinking orally and also written down as an explanation. Also, they were able to use different strategies and tools that they have to solve the subtraction problem once they got the number sentence. So they were kind of able to work with whatever best fits their, fit their brain.
Great instructors are continuously learning. We want to understand what you celebrated in the lesson and what you would improve upon. Reflecting on the lesson, what worked well and what might you do differently?
What went well? I think what went well was that the students were engaged. I think it was, the book was kind of entertaining for them, and it was a great way to show the content in a fun way. So I think that was something to celebrate. I if I had to do it over again, I would probably do a few more examples with a small group. Most of the kids were able to go on their own with their partner and start, but there was a couple kids that were still a little bit confused on where to put, they understand the concept of part whole, but they were getting a little bit caught up on where to put things. So in the future, I would just pull those students into a small group, talk to them for a few minutes, make sure they're okay with that, and then send them off with their partner.
Were there any surprises or unexpected student behaviors or reactions?
Yes, there was a little surprise that and a reaction that I had that was exciting. When one of my students was talking about how to do a subtraction, okay, let me start over. I got caught up. Okay, so one kind of aha moment or surprise that I had was when we were working on the carpet, one of the students was having a tough time with subtracting. So she was able to do the part whole box, come up with her subtraction sentence, but she was having a hard time subtracting. And I had her call on another student to help her out, and the other student brought up base 10 blocks. And she talked about how you can't subtract a bigger number from a smaller number. So she took her 10 over to the bank manager and asked them to switch out 10 ones for a 10, and then she could use those to subtract. And I thought that was really neat because it's kind of like real world, they kind of understand, I could go to a bank, that's real life, And then the student that was struggling was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So they kind of had a little learning moment there together. So that was exciting to see.
Okay.
And in the front, he goes, my clue is that I like to take a Pizookie during the day because I'm nocturnal. And the kids were like, what? And he's like, yeah, like, duh, like nocturnal. Like, you don't know what that means? Like, oh, that was the funniest. Like, they're so entertaining.
Wow.
I swear.
That's great. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go through a few of these. You can skip if you feel like it's redundant.
Okay. So my name is Kate Waldron, and I'm a second grade teacher at Aspire University Charter School in Modesto, California. And today I taught a lesson on number talks, also known as number strings.
Good. How does this lesson connect to and build on students' prior skills and knowledge, what was taught before the lesson and what will come after it?
So with the number strings lessons, the kids, they've been building on this since kindergarten. They've started out with some strategies with, one-digit numbers, moving on to two-digit numbers, and now we actually yesterday learned a strategy for three-digit. So it constantly builds across grade levels, and then they'll continue up, as they continue to get older to get even more strategies. So they're able to choose whatever ones they want, and they've been taught prior to that. So it kind of builds upon itself. Yeah, does that answer Did that answer the question?
Feel good?
Yeah, I feel okay about that.
Okay. So talking about the standards, do you want to go into that? Talk about the standards or cluster targeted in this lesson?
I can a little. It's kind of like the other one, though.
From yesterday?
No, from today's explanation of, it's the same right?
Let's move to this section
Yeah,
then.
it's the same standard.
Okay. How did the students handle this lesson? Did they understand the mathematics of the lesson, and how do you know?
So I think the students did understand the lesson. They were able to choose whatever strategy they wanted to solve the problem. And then kind of how I know and gauge how they're doing is they have think time to think about how they want to solve the problem, but they don't talk about it. It's just all in their, mentally. They share out their answers, and I record all the answers. Some days they all get it and they have the same answer. Sometimes I'm recording 10 different answers. It's whatever they got. Then they get to talk to their partner and discuss the math. And before we share out as a class, I say, okay, now that you talked about it with your partner, does anybody want to change their answer? I don't call them out and say, okay, yours was wrong. Do you want to change it? I just leave it up to them. And in today's lesson, a couple students had they got the incorrect answer, but after talking with a partner, they said, I want to change my answer to this. So they were able to kind of figure out what they did incorrectly and how to change it. And all of them ended up getting the right one and were able to explain their thinking. So I think overall they met, my objective of the lesson.
Yeah. I mean, we can stop there.
Okay. The only thing...
Here's one more actually for that one. Were there any surprises or student behaviors or reactions?
Trying to think today's specific. There's so many. There's always so many with this.
They were going up to the board.
Yeah. I actually did have a surprise. It wasn't necessarily a positive one though, but I will share it. I don't know if...
Let's go for it.
I did notice that one of the students chose to stack the numbers on top of each other and carry over, which was really surprising to me because we've spent so much time on different strategies, and I know sometimes kids are taught things at home or previously taught things, and I encourage them not to do that because it's not as conceptual. So he was able to kind of explain his thinking a little bit, but I think he got stuck on the procedure of it. And so that was something I was a little bit like, okay, I wish, maybe next time he would use a different strategy. That was probably the only, surprise I had.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
That's good. One thing, I don't know if you wanted me to, one thing for the number strings, it's very similar to my other answer though for the other lesson, but the core action 3 question, students being able to choose their own strategy. Okay. Do you want me to touch on that at all, or do you think
definitely.
Okay.
So which behaviors from core action 3 did the students best exemplify?
So I think that this lesson best exemplified core action 3 in that students were able to choose their own strategy. They've been taught many different ones, and I give them the freedom to choose whatever one works for them. And so I think that's really important because math is, it's taught in so many different ways, and some kids understand certain ways better than others. And so I always tell them whatever works best for your brain and fits your brain, you can do that. And it's great to hear them talking about it because I even hear students say, that doesn't really fit for my brain. I'd actually like to share this strategy with you. And then they kind of, they have a discourse about that. So I think core action 3 is definitely hit with the number strings, layout of how we do it and how it went today. It was pretty great.
Okay, good.
Okay.